Hi, everybody. Welcome to Facebook Auction Live. For those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Chidi, and these are my esteemed colleagues, Amy and Romnick. Today, the topic is going to be conversion optimization. So you might be wondering, why did we choose to do this? Well, the reason that is because after speaking to hundreds of advertisers like yourself, we decided that we want to provide you guys with more transparency and more information about the auction. So Romnick is actually going to start with talking about high level what the auction is, you know, the in-betweens of the auction, and then Amy Lee is going to finish with, you know, basically ending with conversion optimization and why that's important. So let's start with Romnick. Romnick.
Thanks, Chidi, for organizing this, by the way. So the Facebook feed that I see is very different from Facebook feed that Amy and Chidi see, right? So the ads, the organic, my friends are different, my posts are different. Similarly, the ads that I see are very different. Now, what Facebook is a place where you get personalized content, you also get personalized ads. So that's on the user side. Advertisers also require personalized content in the sense that what they value is different. So for example, CPG advertisers, for like Procter & Gamble, Unilever, what they value is slightly different from our gaming clients like Machine Zone, who want app installs, who want people to come onto their websites, so on and so forth. So the Facebook system is optimized to provide the advertiser with a unique audience who they value most. A good example of this is probably thinking about if there was a barber in East Village in New York City, and they ran a conversion optimization ad. So what they ran is very simply, they want people to sign up for events. Like they want people to sign up to come and have a haircut with them. How would that work? So let's say they set up an ad on Facebook, very broadly speaking, targeting all of the US. What Facebook would start by doing is delivering impressions all over the US. So there'd be some impressions in California, there'll be some impressions in Nevada, there'll be some impressions in New York City. Slowly and steadily, we would get to know that the clicks are coming from more people in New York City. And our systems would learn that the value that this barbershop gets is from people signing up for events. So the first part of that is people actually clicking out to their website. So Facebook would learn that they're coming from New York City, and it would converge into those. Now, in New York City, there would be different neighborhoods it would start delivering impressions to, and very quickly realize that people in East Village are the ones that are converting. And within that, it would be like a particular demographics, so on and so forth. So conversion optimization, which is primarily a thing for direct response advertisers, which is an objective which they actually want, hones in on the target audience that is likely to convert on your ads. So in this example, amongst all the people in the US, the people who are most likely to convert on your ads lived in East Village in New York City, and our systems would converge onto those. Now, there are a number of things that you need for that, which would be like learning, and you need to give us data. There are a number of aspects to this, which I'm going to allow Amy to talk about.
Sure. Thank you for the intro, Romnick, about sort of how our system collects information and uses that on behalf of advertisers and consumers of the Facebook platform. Super excited to talk about conversion optimization today, just because it's quite simply one of the most powerful solutions we offer to advertisers, agencies, and other partners who are interested in driving sales or events on their websites or on their mobile apps, right? It's pretty much like a basic tool in the toolkit we offer here. So let's see. When you have the goal of driving events on your website or your mobile app, going to Facebook, you're ready to set up an ad. Facebook, one of the first things we ask you to do is select an objective for your campaign, and so hopefully here you're selecting traffic or website conversions, for example. The second most important thing to do if you are interested in driving online sales, online events, app events pertaining to your mobile app, is to make sure you're selecting the right optimization goal for your ad set. So if you're in our creation interfaces, for example, you'll see a delivery section, a section that says optimization for ad delivery, and you've got a pull-down menu. So say, okay, you're interested in driving, website conversions. You've selected that as your campaign objective. Now in your in your ad set, underneath that campaign, you're going to select as your optimization goal conversions. That is the first step in leveraging sort of the power of our optimization systems, right? So if you select conversions, then our delivery system can actually understand what's most important to you, understand the types of people in your target audience on Facebook who are converting on things like what you're promoting or things like it, and then specifically, intelligently decide who to show ads to among the people in your target audience, kind of honing in on those people who are more likely to convert. That's good. You're allowing this machine to work on your behalf. To contrast with what happens when a lot of people are, maybe come from search, advertising backgrounds, et cetera, are used to buying clicks, bidding for clicks. The equivalent on Facebook would be, I went to my ad set optimization goal and I selected to have my ad set optimized for clicks. If you come to Facebook and choose to optimize for clicks, you're actually going to tell the system, look, all I want is clicks. I don't actually care what happens after the click. And our system will actually say, all right, Romnick wants clicks. I'm going to go like crazy, find a lot of clicks. Anything that happens after the click, including factoring in which of those clickers convert or which of those clickers just simply drop off, the system is totally going to disregard. That means if you're optimizing for clicks, you pretty much, all of that drop off is going to come out of, the cost of that drop off will come out of your pocket as an advertiser, right? Whereas if you're optimizing for conversions, we're working to find you those converters, and you're just taking advantage of that much more that much more efficiency, I should say. So that's why we're talking about it, I guess. Super excited to talk about this. Let's see. One question that comes up a lot is how much does so say I'm bought into the value proposition of conversion optimization. It seems as if a lot of factors get considered in, the system, how the system chooses who to show my ads to. There are a lot of factors. So one question is how much does previous account history or activity affect the delivery of these ads? Do you want to
sure. So essentially what Facebook is trying to do is get all the information we can and trying to optimize on your behalf. The information would be account history, the user's characteristics, the ad history, so the particular ad, the creatives, the targeting, all of that's information. The account history does matter, but I would not say it matters. It's the primary. I don't think it plays a very large part in this entire process. I think, and it's something that is tough to control. So I would focus on the ad by itself, the ad, the targeting, the bidding, having all those in place, rather than worrying about the higher account level features.
Yeah, I would say that what we've built in our system is, a pretty complex machine learning model that's considering thousands of features, factors at any one time in terms of how do we predict what's most important. What's the most important predictor, I guess, of conversion likelihood, right?
Yeah.
Account history is one of those thousands of features. I would say in practice we see that even more important is activity on a specific ad set, like on the ad set in question. So I think what we see in practice is if you've got an ad set set up and within a couple of days, if that ad set is not seeing, a few conversions a day at that, on that ad set, it's probably time to change some variables on that ad set.
For sure. So it's almost like, in order for us to optimize, you have to give us information. The information in a conversion optimization is conversions happening. So for example, in the earlier example about the barber in East Village, if nobody in New York City clicked or converted, we would not get that piece of information. So you have to provide us with sufficient amount of information, and we should talk more about sufficiency in a bit. But so if we don't have the data, we can't optimize. So if you're trying to sell Teslas on Facebook, probably there ain't too many people buying Teslas. So if the information, if a conversion is defined as an actual checkout of a Tesla, unlikely that's going to happen. And if that doesn't happen, our system doesn't know who's more converting and who's less converting, because almost no one converted on a Tesla on Facebook. Right. So providing us sufficient information of defining what your conversion is becomes a pretty important part in this entire process.
Totally. If you were like, all right, I know that Ramnik and Chidi last week both bought Teslas, like, nice work. And then you were like, all right, of this pool of 1 million people, who's the next most likely to buy a Tesla? You kind of don't have that much information to make an informed decision. Whereas if you had, 10,000 very, accomplished people who all bought Teslas, then you suddenly have more data points to be able to say, like, oh, like, what are the common characteristics of all these people? Now I can make a much more intelligent decision about what other people may be most likely to buy Teslas. And I think, the Tesla one's hard. That's definitely a very high consideration purchase, and there's probably actually not that many Facebook ad campaigns driving the purchase of that specifically. But another common question we really get is, so what is there a minimum number of conversions that we need to make conversion optimization work? And I think, Ramnik, I think it actually came from a study that you did back in the day.
I did. So what we recommend is something like at least 25 conversions on an ad set before we actually start to differentiate between people, high converters versus low converters. If you're getting less than that, so if we get much fewer than those, we're not calibrated. And calibration is basically our predictions being very off, which will impact your delivery. And one of the problems that people face is under delivery. Like, oh, my conversion, like I set up a conversion pixel, I try to optimize towards it, I did not get conversions. Like I didn't even get delivery. Like conversion is a post-delivery feature. So now if your ad set is set up for less than 25 conversions and you don't expect 25 conversions.
25 conversions over a particular time period?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
So I would say you should at least have your budget such that you have budget enough that you're going to get 25 conversions. Our system will start learning and optimizing, and we have it's a slightly more nuanced answer, but this is almost correct, which is like you should, if you have 25 conversions, our system will start learning and optimizing. Now, if for some reason you're not getting conversions initially, then the conversion pixel is way down the funnel. And what I mean by that is, if it's on a purchase event rather than add to cart, then it might be smart to move the pixel up. So basically redefine what a conversion is. Now, if you redefine what a conversion is from a checkout to an add to cart, which happen more frequently than a checkout, you will start increasing the amount of information our system receives. Now, so there's a caveat to this though. The further higher you go in the funnel, the less close you are to your true objective. Totally. What you want is checkouts. Yeah. Add to cart is on the path to a checkout, but what you ideally want is a checkout. So you have to define, or you have to sort of experiment, maybe experiment's the correct word, of what is an appropriate consideration event, which is closest to the thing that you truly value, but you're getting sufficient delivery and information and conversions.
What if you have multiple ad sets and you're getting a total of 25 conversions? Is that still effective?
So no. So I think, and Amy alluded to this before, which is our system is learning the many features in our system. The account history, this campaign history, this ad set history, this ad history, because we're also trying to learn the creative. We don't cross-learn as well. So if I have two ad sets, which are independent, we're trying to learn them separately rather than learning them together. And because of this, learnings don't really translate that well. Yeah. So I would say it has to be set up separately.
Yeah, so in short, you're aiming to get 15 to 25 conversions at the ad set level, probably in about a week's time, I would say, because if it's any longer, our system's going to kind of give up before then. Yeah. So conversions at the ad set level are what matter for our system. And it occurs to me, I know a lot of folks who are tuning in right now are familiar with lookalike audiences, and in order to form a lookalike audience, you need the seed, right, the source for the lookalike. And so, you've got a lot of options when you're trying to upload a seed for a lookalike audience, right? Maybe it's some portion of your CRM list, and you could choose to upload your very, very, like a group of your very, very best customers, or like upload a much bigger list with like all your customers. So let's see, if your list, your source list is too small, you know, it's, what's the minimum? Probably like some 20 people. I don't know. It's basically, if it's too few people, it might not actually give our system enough clues as to like who would be truly valuable for you when the system is forming a lookalike audience per se, for example. But yeah, if that seed, so then, you know, maybe you want to include more of like not just your very, very top VIP customers, but like your VIP plus like the next level of quality customers, and that might be a very fruitful seed for a lookalike audience. Then, I mean, if you go too far and you know, send in a list of all your customers to make a lookalike, then you might really dilute the quality of that seed, right? So I think you can imagine a similar scenario when it comes to understanding what's the best optimization goal for my ad set when I'm using conversion optimization, right? I would love to, if I have enough data, set as my optimization goal that early downstream event, maybe that really like important purchase that I value the most. But if it's only happening a couple of times a week, and it's impossible for me to kind of set up an ad set so I can capture, you know, 25 of that particular conversion on an ad set in a week, then it's time to say, all right, well, what else can I use as my sort of seed, my optimization goal? And it could be, maybe it's that next event up, maybe it's an add to cart event or a registration event. Then you keep going all the way up the funnel, though. You get more and more data to use as the seed, but you kind of lose out on that quality too. And that, I mean, the extreme side of that is we move all the way up and start optimizing for clicks, and like you can imagine all the quality that you've sort of lost in that maneuvering.
Lots of example.
So I have an iPad right here because, you know, there's a whole bunch of questions that are being asked by our audience, and I'm just looking through the questions right now. Before I actually go into the questions, I want everybody to take a moment and actually like this video right away, because we want to definitely follow up with everybody after this video, and we have a couple of links towards the end of this video that we're going to post. So the first question is basically, you know, there's manual bidding, there's automatic bidding. How do you decide which one is the right one to use at the right time?
Sure. So let's see. Just to differentiate between the behavior of automatic bidding and a manual bid, I know we have a couple of types of manual bids that you can use. A manual bid basically allows you to signal to our system exactly how much you value a particular event, how much you value that event that you've set as your optimization goal. So say you're optimizing for conversions, as we are promoting pretty strongly here, and you say, look, I'm interested in driving sales on my e-commerce site. I don't want to pay more than $50 for any sale. That suggests that you should set a manual bid. Give us that $50 threshold in some way. We've got two options for setting a manual bid today when you're optimizing for website conversions. And those are, you can set an average bid or you can set a maximum bid. So when you set an average bid, you're kind of giving our system direction that, look, you want as many conversions as possible such that your average cost per action nets out at $50, say, if you gave us that $50 average bid. So from the time you set that $50 bid, like from that point forward, our system's going to be like, all right, well, we know that Chidi kind of has this in mind. We're going to try to show ads to people to kind of maintain average CPA at $50. Like Ramnik, you talked a lot about, you know, more data helps our system make better predictions. So in early days of you setting up a new ad set, setting that live with the $50 average bid, you might see more cost, you know, average cost volatility in the beginning. But as more conversions get captured on the ad set, you should see that average CPA start to net out at that $50 level. That's what average bid does. Average bid, we launched this actually last summer or so we're really excited we have that capability of allowing advertisers to manage towards an average cost threshold a little bit easier. Before average bid was available, and what we've always had available in our system through today is a notion of a max bid. So that's when, basically when you use max bid, you set a max bid of $50 for your ad set, you're saying you'd prefer not to pay more than $50 for any single conversion. So it's like, as we're showing ads, we're trying to get you a cost per conversion of $50 or less. So with average bidding, in contrast, some conversions might cost more than $50, some less, but we're trying to net you out at an average of $50. So you actually, you know, when you use an average bid of $50, you'd probably see more conversions at that 50, like while more conversions, more delivery in general, while netting out at that $50 average CPA. then finally, automatic bidding. Like say, maybe you're just in a really growth mode for your business. You're like, I don't really mind if what the exact average cost is, or that, I don't have a specific cost threshold in mind. Automatic bidding lets you signal to our system that you want to leverage the budget you've set for your ad set to get as many of your optimization goal as possible. So like we see a lot of businesses, for example, who are like, great, we need new users. We capture a lot of new kind of email signups, and I need to hit some growth goals this month. So you know what? I just want as many email signups as I can get for this like budget of $1,000.
What are the risks to automatic bidding?
So the good thing, I'll open with that, is that you can really ensure that your full ad set budget is maximized to get you as many of your desired outcome as is possible to get in our auction for that budget. Risk is because you're not specifying to us an average, any type of specific monetary like cost threshold. We're just our goal is to make sure you stay competitive in the auction. So we actually, for every auction that you do enter, we're going to adjust your bid to keep you competitive, right?
Okay.
So your average cost could be something other than what you might have had in mind, because you're not actually giving us that signal. You're just, taking advantage of this ability to stay competitive in the auction and make sure you're getting as many of your desired result budget as possible.
So actually, the way it technically works at the back end is very simple. It's if you've specified $1,000 for 5 days, for example, roughly speaking, you want to spend $200 a day. If we are at a point in which we are on par to spend less than $200 for the day, we will increase your bid. And if we are overspending, we've overspent at the rate, we're ahead of our expected curves, we'll reduce your bid. So automatic bidding is a way in which you're specifying to our system that you have a budget and you have a time period, and you want to spend this budget over the time period and maximize the number of conversions you're getting. So the automatic bidding will keep adjusting it's actually at the back end, it'll keep adjusting your max bid and try to get you the maximum, the most efficient number of conversions, satisfying your complete budget. So hopefully you shouldn't face too much under delivery with the auto bid.
Yeah, that's the goal. Our team is making sort of ongoing improvements to the automatic bidding feature as well to make sure that we deliver on this promise of we'll leverage your full budget to get you as many of your desired result as possible.
So speaking about budgets, we have daily budgeting, we have lifetime budgeting, right? Ramnik, can you tell me more about like when is the right time to use lifetime versus daily?
So daily budgeting, you're telling our system precisely how much you want to spend in each day. Now that's very different from, that's sort of an artificial constraint that you're putting on our system. Versus when you're spending a lifetime budget, you're saying over the span of the week, the 14 days, you want to spend X amounts of dollars, which is less constrained. Our system, in some sense, actually is trying to maximize the value across your entire lifetime. So the more constraints you specify, I would say you actually lose efficiency. Unless there's a very good reason why, so there could be business reasons, there could be you're testing it out. I generally prefer lifetime budgets over daily budgets. Daily budgets are constraining. So for example, one thing about a good example is there are more people who come to Facebook on the weekends than on the weekdays.
Totally.
So if you're saying that, so we could actually get you more efficient conversions probably, or like we could get you more cheaper delivery, marginally cheaper delivery, or we could optimize because we know how people come on Facebook. Like you should not be specifying a daily budget.
Well, I mean, to build on that a little bit, we actually did institute a change to how daily ad set budgets work around fall of last year, whereby it used to be that you would set, if you chose to use daily budgets instead of lifetime budgets, you set a daily budget of $5. We would historically aim to spend exactly $5 every day, which totally leads to that type of inefficiency, the potential inefficiency that you mentioned, because if there's a day when actually the prospects are much better for your campaign and for this, for the people that you've indicated are valuable to you, then another day, there's no flexibility to take advantage of that extra potential. So as of about October of last year, some people do, some advertisers have told us they just find it easier from a workflow perspective to manage using daily budgets versus lifetime. But the way that the daily budget settings will work now is that you can still kind of specify to us your daily target of $5, for example. But we will allow for some variance in daily spend from day to day kind of up to, I guess, 25% over your daily target.
Okay.
That is to account for that daily variance in opportunities to reach valuable people in your
Okay.
target audience. It kind of like helps to mitigate the issue you're talking about. With that all said, there should be now less performance differential between using daily or lifetime budget, so it can be a little bit more of like whatever you find it easier to manage. We do have some features at the moment that are available for daily, are available for lifetime budgets, but not daily budgets, for example, such as ad scheduling, or some people call it day parting. So today that's available for ad sets using lifetime budgets, but not daily. So if like it's important for you to use day parting or add, this hour of day or
Okay.
time of day of week sort of scheduling, then you probably will need makes sense to use lifetime budgets at the moment. But that's something. I mean, we've heard some feedback on that front too. So ultimately, the behavioral differences aren't so great.
So you mentioned earlier that you should be aiming for 25 conversions per week per ad set, right? What about if you're using daily budgeting? Does that reset that number?
No.
No, right?
Because the optimization system doesn't know about budget. So the system that requires all these conversions is a system which is trying to predict if you were to show up on Facebook and I'm an advertiser, what is the probability that you convert on my ad? That system is sort of independent of the budget. That prediction system does not know about daily versus lifetime.
Okay. So what if you set up a campaign and it goes on for about 2 weeks, right? But the flight is 4 weeks long, so you have 2 weeks left. What happens if you actually decide to pivot and switch something in the campaign? What's the impact of that?
So there's some things which reset learnings. So I think one of the big things that we'd say is don't panic too quickly, right?
Panic ever.
Oh, don't panic.
No need.
That's true. Don't panic is
Don't panic.
pretty good. So there's some things which will reset learnings. And what we mean by that is it constructs a new object ID at the back end, which is slightly technical. But stuff like if you change your creative, if you change your targeting, if you change your optimization, all of that will it'll reset some of our features. So as we discussed initially, there are like multitude of features that we have. Account history, campaign history, ad set history, ad ID history, lots of other features. Some of those will get reset. So if you panic too quickly and make too many changes, it actually adversely affects SEO. Now, there's a flip side to this, that you're not getting conversions at all, and you need to actually redefine what your conversion event is. So I think it's a little bit of a song and dance between these, like not changing anything versus making changes way too frequently.
Yeah, I think it's just a kind of an idea of being aware of the trade-offs.
Yeah.
I think we were chatting about this earlier. If you launch a new ad, we're going to sort of start some initial, we're going to start learning from scratch to some extent, right? Like we do take into account account history and all these other thousands of features, but that most important factor in delivery after it's been delivering for a little bit is performance on that specific ad set. So if you've got a brand new ad, we actually start to leverage a lot of aggregated information about other ad sets and ads from other advertisers, and basically a lot of stuff that may not nearly be as relevant to future performance of your ad set as the actual future performance of that ad set.
Which changes can I make that actually cause the largest impact in terms of machine learning? So if I make this particular change, all of a sudden, I start from the beginning with regards to our algorithms actually understanding what's going on.
So you could change your bids. So bids is one way, if it's a max bid or an average bid, if you're not competitive enough in the auction, you could actually increase your bids in order to be more competitive. That's one simple change, which is you're not changing what you're optimizing for, but you're changing how much you value the optimization, or what is your maximum bid that you're allowing our system to use. The other thing you could change, as we discussed, is your conversion event. But I would say conversion event is one of those things, once you've started getting delivery on your ad sets, you should almost never change it, because it's a more costly process. You have to change your pixel, you have to do a few more things. You can relax your targeting because that's giving us more opportunity. And what we're doing is we explore, what we do is we start by exploring in conversion optimization. Like we start by giving impressions and we start exploring the audience space. And once we find out what is the characteristic of converted users, we try to exploit them for you, which is try to deliver for them. So start by exploration and then you go to exploitation. Like exploitation being a good term, like you're exploiting the machine learning. The machine learning system is
It's okay to exploit a machine.
Yeah.
Versus people.
Yeah, so we're not exploiting people, but it's like you're using Facebook's learning. You're using characteristics that we know about users and we know about your ads, and we're sort of merging the two. So I would say those are the big ones that you can change, which is like change your targeting, change your bids. Like targeting and bids will get you like most of the way there. For a very, very high consideration event, or I would say even for, then you should reconsider what you define as a conversion.
Yeah, I like those what you kind of mentioned there. I mean, I think we think, I guess our system depends a lot on constraints, right? And like, bid and budget, the bid and budget that you set on your ad set are actually constraints. Like you're saying like, where, of all these people on the Facebook platform, like who am I allowed to talk to find this event that I really value? And so if you set your bid sort of, lower than you actually might value a conversion just because you're like, oh, well, let's see what I can get for this cost. You're really just saying, all right, let's eliminate all of these people that I can potentially talk to or like get to convert on my website. Same with targeting. If you get too, we have a lot of really powerful targeting features on our platform, certainly, but if it's too narrow, then you're actually, not only are you telling us who you can talk to, but you're telling us who we cannot talk to at all.
I think that's a very crucial point.
Yeah.
Like targeting is basically you telling us that who has a probability of 0 of conversion. Like Facebook don't even try to explore in that domain. And people you're targeting are the people that you want conversions from.
Right. Yeah, and so if you were, if you were maybe marketing like an alcoholic beverage, then in the U.S. you would want to make sure like people under the age of 21 they should not be providing value to you for this particular good. So like, fine, eliminate them. That is a good use of targeting. But if you're saying like, oh, like I'm marketing, I'm trying to sell yoga gear on my website. Look, I think I'll target. I'll use like Facebook interest targeting. I'll target like yoga and Pilates. They might want some yoga pants and some other keywords. That's a great starting point. But I think the way that our platform puts people in each of those interest categories is pretty. It's a pretty black and white thing too. We're like, oh, these people have liked other pages about yoga and things like that, and it's just so it is a finite group of people. Could there be anyone on the Facebook platform that falls outside of these like discrete pools of people that Facebook's arbitrarily kind of said are interested in yoga? Potentially. And so for example, we've got a new feature called expanded targeting, which is like a one-check box, like one-check feature in the creation flow, which says, look, you can start with interest targeting, but I'm going to check this box off and say, if it can actually lower my cost per conversion, you can, consider showing my ad to people outside this target audience. And that could be a great thing, right? Because then suddenly I can sell a lot more yoga pants that way, potentially, test it. But that's one avenue where we're saying, look, like maybe you can consider softening your constraints in order to get more of that thing that you're trying to drive with your Facebook ads.
For sure, yeah.
If you're just joining us, don't forget, please like the page, like the video. Right now, Amy and Romnick, we're talking about conversion optimization, but I'm hearing a lot of targeting, so it sounds like a good topic for the next one. So this is the next question. Considering Valentine's Day is less than 2 weeks away, right? Oftentimes, we see advertisers experience rising CPMs as we get closer to a holiday time period, right? Mostly because of competition. But in terms of strategy, can you give some insight onto how to look at that situation and the relationship between rising CPMs and CPA?
Do you want to take that one?
Do you have any? I
So
just talk, but I feel like you might have more.
So there's a rising CPA around Valentine's Day, and that would be, but correspondingly, my claim would be that conversions are also rising. This is almost like exactly what we see in the holiday season, right? Which is the CPAs rise, but so are more number of people converting. And by converting, people are sending gifts to each other, People are buying more stuff. So what DR advertisers care about is the cost per conversion. Like rising CPMs is not the same as your rising cost per conversion. So it actually, one of the surprising things we noticed was early December, CPMs go up on Facebook, and CPAs actually go down. My guess would be around Valentine's Day, it would be something similar.
So why do you think that you see that happening?
Because people are buying more. So it's one of those holidays in which people are buying more gifts for their loved ones. And if you're buying more gifts, Facebook is one of the primary places you're buying those gifts. You're seeing ads and you're converting on those ads.
Yep.
So
totally. So actually, can you speak to some implications then about whether if you're seeing CPMs rise, generally competition rise, and you're actually bidding on the event for the event you care about using conversion optimization or like something else?
Yeah. So the competition's rising now, which also means that so what we're trying, either we are predicting appropriately what the conversion rate should be, which is higher for you, in which case your bid won't change. But one of the things you might consider doing is relaxing your bids. Making use of the fact that more conversions are going to happen on the platform, it might make more sense to reduce the constraints as you were talking about. Reduce that, or like increase your max bid so that you're constraining the system a little less. And monitor on an average CPA basis rather than the CPM basis. Does that sound like something?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if you actually do care about a conversion on your website, for example, and conversion rates generally are increasing at a time like Valentine's Day or the December sort of holiday period. Black Friday, right? Like when you give us a bid for a conversion, we actually back that into an effective CPM-based bid using our estimates of click-through rates and estimated click-to-conversion rates. So if conversion rates are rising in general, then that actually helps make conversion bids more competitive. But if you're not bidding for conversions and you're bidding for some other proxy event, then those increasing conversion rates do not factor into making your bid.
So it sounds like what you guys are basically saying is, if you're seeing rising CPMs into the holiday time period, sometimes that's actually the most important time to actually invest, right? That's the most important time to reach your users because, on the line right now, we have a lot of e-commerce and we have a lot of retail advertisers. And I would say that when they see rising CPMs, a lot of times there's a lot of fear in that, right?
Yeah.
I would caveat it a little bit. If you naturally believe that your product will sell more around this time, then your conversion rates are going to go up, and we will actually adjust we will actually bid on your behalf higher, and we'll probably get you lower CPAs in aggregate. So you don't need to care about CPMs, but your CPAs are going down, so which is good for you. This is absolutely the most important time for you. However, if your product is not something that's going to be sold, that people are likely to buy more often on Valentine's Day, then because everyone else conversion rates higher, you're getting less competitive in the auction in some sense. So you probably will not be, you won't have the same amount of delivery. So either you'll have to increase your max bid to compensate for the rising competition, or it's just a time when you'll experience slightly, I won't use the word undelivery, but you're less competitive in the auction. So I would say if your business actually depends on Valentine's Day, it is absolutely the best time.
Right.
Like if you're going to sell more right now, you should invest more on Facebook.
Totally, yeah. Do it, invest if it makes sense for your business, for sure. We see some instances where sort of so this is Valentine's Day, pretty competitive time. Maybe during large sporting events, it can get quite competitive too. Certainly the end of the year is always competitive or holidays. I think January, first week of January is just bargain city pretty much, I think, because it's actually the opposite of the competition that we see at the end of that year. So that's one instance where if you are looking for more, efficient pricing, potentially, even if you don't necessarily see any reason to invest more on Jan 4, think about it actually, because a lot of people are still sort of on vacation, not necessarily buying. So that's the opportunities that might be.
That's really important for brand advertisers, actually.
Sure.
And different regions might be impacted differently as well, right? Because it's all about supply and demand.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to pivot a little bit, relevance score. Right? We hear relevance score all the time. I've spoken to several advertisers, and they want to know, how they should use relevance score, right? Like, when is it the right time to use it? When is it not the right time to use it? How to interpret it. Can you guys shed any light on that?
Sure. Look, we get a lot of questions about sort of how does relevance score factor into my performance in the auction. I want to clarify that relevance score describes some of the, we consider how interesting your ad might be to an individual in your target audience when we enter you into a particular auction. We also consider, so we'll leave it at that. Relevance score is a measure of how interesting your ad is predicted to be to people in your target audience compared to other ads targeting the same people in that audience. It's like a very aggregated sort of metric, just kind of a ranking metric, right? So we kind of say, all right, well, everyone gets a score of 1 to 10. If you get 4, relevance score 4 for this particular ad, 60% of ads are actually seemingly more interesting to different people in your target audience. Okay. That is not some direct, like that number doesn't factor into the auction directly anyway. It's sort of, relevance score is a descriptive metric that describes like kind of in a little bit of an abstracted way how interesting your ad is. So it's meant to be a bit of a directional metric, honestly.
Got it. So what if I get like a 4 today, and then 2 weeks from now I get a 6? Right.
On the same ad.
On the same ad.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting because normally over time, you consider if you have an ad in market, you get some creative fatigue over time if you don't refresh your audience or your creative at all. So it's normal to see not only like click-through rates maybe drop, start to fall over time, but you would see relevance score fall over time as well, right? Same idea. If it's increasing, then that's wonderful. Maybe you've changed your targeting and you're actually reaching people for whom this ad is more interesting or relevant. So that's good news.
So I think changes in relevance score are important rather than relevance score by itself is telling you very little. And because it's a percentile rank, not everyone can be a 10 on 10, right? There are some ads which are
not, yeah.
only 10% of the people will get a relevance score of 10. So there are some kind of ads which are more engaging than others. So for example, if it's a movie trailer, you'd expect it to be on the higher end of the spectrum because it's more engaging versus the financial services, like the creatives cannot be very, very engaging. So
harder to be.
So you'd expect them to be on the lower end of the spectrum. So there's almost like a natural position of where your creative should lie. Any deviation from that natural equilibria should be indicative of something. And especially like reducing relevance score over time is signaling creative fatigue. I've been running this ad, it starts at a 6, goes down to a 4.
Yeah.
Okay, people have seen this.
Like right, find new creative or find a new audience, honestly.
What if you have other creative, but it's in the ad set, but it's just not spending, right? Like, so you have multiple creatives in one particular ad set, and naturally the best performing creative is going to eventually shut the other ones off, right? Because you want the best performing creative being shown to our users. What about that second and third creative? Like when you're experiencing creative fatigue with the first one, do you then just say, okay, well, let me move the second one up into the first slot?
Is the question, should you do that in like sort of manual way versus, yeah. I mean, it's an interesting question. I think like when you talk about relevance and creative fatigue, it's a function of both the actual creative asset as well as the target audience you're using. So imagine if you saw like 3 ads for a t-shirt company and a t-shirt company has 3 different creative in the same ad set marketing t-shirts, and they're like slightly different colors or something like that. And say like we do some sort of, if you've set all of those 3 ads in a single ad set, our system will say, all right, what's likely to be the best performing of these creatives in this ad set, and like pretty much start to optimize delivery towards the best performing creative. So probably one of those creatives in time will get the bulk of the delivery. Cool, and like you've targeted the same audience of teens or something for 3 weeks. Say you start to see like a declining click-through rate, declining relevance score, a sign of creative fatigue, like in the purple ad creative, the purple t-shirt ad was like serving most of the ads. Like you could probably, pause the purple ad and like leave you've got a blue and an orange like t-shirt ad still in that ad set and see if one of those starts running. You might see like a bump, like a temporary, bump in performance, but then ultimately you're still like showing the same t-shirt ad to the same group of teens, many of whom have already seen it, many of whom probably the ones who are going to buy t-shirts like did it already. So then it's like at that point, it's not just a creative issue potentially. Like maybe you've already sent that same message to that audience too much.
Okay. Well, I have one final question, unless there's any more questions by the audience. So this is actually a really important question. Does overlapping audiences impact optimization and delivery?
So in some sense, it doesn't. So it's a slightly nuanced answer. Let's say I have two ad sets which are overlapping on 90% of the audience. What we will do is, we will, like for every person in that overlap, we will choose one of the two ads and take them further in the auction. Like we will take them into consideration. So never are you competing with yourself in the auction. And this is the number of reasons why you don't want to compete with yourself. So what ends up happening, the impact of this huge overlap would be that your audience size, if you thought your audience size was 200 people, let's say they're 100 and 100, it's actually more like 110 people with 90 people overlap and 10 unique people. So in some sense, overlap is going to constrain your audience. Now, that becomes a factor if you're sort of relying on the edges. If you have multiple ad sets which are running against US or like broad US audience, the overlap doesn't matter as much. Like because there's like the audience size is not constraining at all, it won't matter as much. If that like very, very small audiences and you think you're targeting like more people than you actually are, then it becomes a problem. So our system, essentially what it does is for everyone who's in the overlap, we pick the one we think is the most appropriate ad amongst all your ads and just drop all others and take that forward in the auction.
Okay.
So it may or may not matter.
Yeah, it's harder for you to deliver the full budgets on two ads if the audience is on two ad sets, if the audience for those two ad sets is exactly the same. Like if they're totally different and the same size, then there's more people that you
or if it's like a broad enough audience, we'll still deliver.
Totally, exactly. On the optimization side, there's an important consideration that ties back to what Ramnik and I were talking about with respect to if you're using conversion optimization and our system is making sort of those estimates about who's most likely to convert on your ad, we are almost entirely relying on conversion information at the ad set level. So if you've got two ad sets instead of two ad sets with a budget of $100 rather than one ad set with a budget of $200, targeting the same audience, then and say like, maybe you're bidding your conversion that you're optimizing for is worth $20. On each of those, if in the two ad set scenario, you have the potential only of reaching, you've a likelihood of probably getting around 5 conversions per ad set. If you combine those budgets into a single ad set, you probably could get 10 conversions on that ad set. And in the second scenario, we have one ad set. We're able to make a lot better predictions about likely converters than we could in that scenario where you have two ad sets. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
So there needs to be good reason why there's overlap in your audience. Sure. If not, like you should try to get rid of the overlap and just consolidate learning. Consolidate, it's easier to manage. It's better for our systems. You don't dilute the learnings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just.
And you're also consolidating budget.
Consolidating budget.
Consolidating budget, exactly. It's another notion of like constraints. Like you separating out your budget into many ad sets is more constraining than you having that same budget in fewer ad sets.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I want to give you guys an opportunity, maybe a couple of seconds to think about call to actions, right? Of everything we actually spoke about today, what are some things that you would like to leave the audience with?
You want to start here?
Yeah, for sure. All right. Again, conversion optimization, super important tool that is important to consider when you're really trying to drive either website actions or installs or events inside a mobile app. If we rely on data at the ad set level conversion data at the ad set level to make good predictions about who else is likely to convert on that event that you want. So everything you can do to make sure you're trying to get more conversions on a single ad set, that's good to know. Those are my two main takeaways about sort of conversion optimization generally. Tons of information, obviously, and like best practices and tips to consider when it comes to this topic. So I think we're going to share a post later on today in the group about just like linking to everything you need to know about conversion optimization and tips and tricks to keep in mind.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think experiment. One of the things is like test things out, what works for you. So a couple of things, like there are best practices which work for most of the people, but test. I guess that's pretty much all you have to do.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah, and like because it's sort of a dynamic environment, this auction, it's kind of like the financial markets. Like past performance doesn't necessarily indicate future results. So, it's an ongoing testing and iterating process.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to thank our audience for joining us today. If you're listening to this video, the next one is actually going to be targeting, which will probably be in a month or two from now. Hopefully, like the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And I look forward to speaking to you guys soon. Take care.